Hello, I'm Bob Butler from KCBS Radio in San Francisco. Welcome to a discussion with candidates running for supervisor for District 1 in Contra Costa County. Well, District 1 is made up of the western portion of Contra Costa County and includes El Cerrito, Richmond, San Pablo, and after redistricting also includes the city of Pinole, as well as unincorporated areas around those cities. Today's discussion is sponsored by the County Elections Division and Contra Costa Television. And we're recording this in the studio of Contra Costa Television. We have two supervisor candidates here. We have Supervisor John Joy, who's the incumbent. We also have Mr. Hulen Barnett, who we'll talk to in just a few minutes. Now, Supervisor Gioia, you're running for re-election. You've been on the board for quite a few terms. Why do you want to still do this?
Well, Bob, first, thanks to the League of Women Voters and the Elections Office really holding this very important event to inform our residents. My dad was a high school teacher, civics teacher in Richmond, and taught me the importance of civic responsibility. So thank you. Well, first, I want to continue to be a strong voice for West County, the most diverse part of our county. I grew up here. I understand our community's values. I have strong connections with our community. I work strongly with other elected officials at the federal, state, and local level, strong relationships in our community. And I believe I've been an effective voice, and I want to continue to do that. I think there's a lot of important issues to resolve. My goal is really to achieve health and equity for all.
What do you think are the biggest issues facing the county?
Well, I think one, I want to focus this around health and equity because all the issues we deal with, whether it's about passing regulations at the air district to make our air healthier, whether it's about cleaning up our neighborhoods, whether it's about expanding access to health care, whether it's about, for example, making sure people get the response from the county for vaccinations during the pandemic. All of this is really about equity and health, community health. So for me, it's as we come out of the pandemic, how are we bringing up the communities most impacted, which were generally communities of color, lower income communities? How do we really prepare them to move forward after all of the sacrifices people made and hardships during the pandemic? I think it revolves around that. And it also revolves around, how do we provide greater opportunities for our young people, especially even as this county starts to move away from oil refineries to renewable fuel projects, and how we train young people out of high school or retrain adults to be prepared for those new jobs. So really economic and youth opportunity, our health, and dealing with equity.
You talk about the refineries moving toward renewable fuels. How will that affect the job market or the jobs at the refineries?
Well, first, when one refinery closed in Martinez a couple of years ago, a number of those workers were laid off, which is exactly why Supervisor Glover and I are working together to create a countywide stakeholder group to address how do we, one, replace those jobs with jobs in the new energy economy, and how do we train people for those jobs? Ultimately, the state policy is moving us away from fossil fuels and toward clean energy, and that means a change in the type of jobs we have here in this county. So we'll be spending time working with Congressman DeSaulnier to specifically address how our county addresses this changeover, because it can affect the job market, but we think that new jobs are going to replace, and we want to attract those jobs into Contra Costa that will create more opportunities for our residents.
I know that you're the supervisor for District 1, but I think out in District 4 or 5, there's a steel mill which is supposed to shut down end of next year. Are you familiar with that?
Well, there's been changing industrial activities in the county. The history of this county has seen closure of steel mills, closure of a refinery, a closure of a chemical plant. This county is becoming less industrial, and I think we can seize on that opportunity. And that's how California is changing. It's happening here. So it's really not about stopping that industry from leaving, because that's the future, but it's about preparing us now, the residents, to one, be ready for those jobs, and two, to attract those jobs.
What do you say to the people? Like I've talked to people who work there and they're saying, I'm losing my job. What do you say to
Yeah,
them?
I've talked to many workers at refineries, and they've said we're concerned about our future, and I think that's a legitimate concern, and that's why some of the new jobs that we can attract for clean energy are also industrial jobs. A lot of the training skills, really high skills that these workers have, whether it's as an electrician or a pipe fitter or a steam fitter, some of those jobs are also available. For example, I visited a new hydrogen plant being built at the Republic landfill, the dump in Richmond, and it is going to take our green waste and it's going to convert it to clean hydrogen. And a lot of the jobs there are the same type of jobs that are at the refinery, but it's creating clean electricity and clean power for vehicles. So I think there's opportunities, and we want to expand that. And this project in Richmond may very well be sort of a pilot for other plants. But that's the other thing we want to do is if there's not a job in the same industry for some of those workers, is retrain them or use their existing skills again for the new jobs like a hydrogen plant that we can attract. And these renewable fuel projects provide that opportunity as well. So, and we're not the only ones going through it here in Contra Costa. This is an issue happening all over California, but it's about being aggressive, vigilant to get those opportunities and spend money to train workers.
When you talk to people about their biggest concerns, obviously safety is number one. There is a big concern about the unhoused population, the homeless. What is the county doing to help those people and to reduce the homelessness in the county?
Yeah, homelessness is really a top priority in our county, in our state, and in our country. We need several things. One, it is really shameful that the federal government is not investing with local governments, cities and counties, more funding for mental health services and housing. What we did is we created a $12 million per year, this is 12 million each year, for an affordable housing trust fund to build more affordable housing, especially for those who are currently unhoused. So we just worked on a project that's been approved in the city of San Pablo to create 54 units of permanent housing with around-the-clock supportive services for people who had been unhoused. We need dozens of those kinds of projects. So we're using some of our money and state money to build that. We've also are working to increase capacity and buy or rent hotel rooms in the appropriate locations. County bought a Motel 6, for example, out in the Bay Point, Pittsburgh area to be able to house permanently with services previously homeless. We also need support from the state to get more people into mental health services. Under state law, you cannot force somebody to get mental health services except with a conservatorship. So the governor has proposed creating these county care courts, a care court in every county to work more intensively with our unhoused population to get them into services. Of overwhelming majority of people who are homeless have mental health or substance abuse issues. Housing alone doesn't solve the problem unless they get the appropriate mental health support. Many of them have schizophrenia, dual diagnosis, bipolar. They need help. They need our support. And so we're hoping to use the new money that we're generating of 12 million a year to fund that and work really with cities who are also on the front lines, our partners. And we're working with Richmond. I'll be the first to say there are too many unhoused people in our communities. But we need all levels of government to help us to fight this. It's really the humane thing to do to put people into permanent housing.
You mentioned affordable housing. What really is affordable? Because now people they can barely afford to buy a house. They can't afford to pay rent. So how do we fight that?
I mean, and affordable housing isn't just housing for lower income residents. It's housing for middle income residents. My father was a teacher in this school district for over 20 years. And, today teachers have a tough time affording rent or sales price. I had a neighbor where there were 4 teachers renting a bedroom in a 4-bedroom house in my neighborhood because they couldn't afford to live on their own or buy. That's we need more housing in the right locations, and because that alone will help increase supply, which will help with affordability. And we need to invest more in affordable housing. We just invested in a project that was completed in North Richmond about 1 or 2 years ago, and the time that it takes and the funding to build this housing is expensive. And so I think there's been a lot of discussion in the Bay Area about an affordable housing bond, because this is, a lot of our problems, our issues aren't just in one county or one city. They're regional issues. I mean, think about it. You can't solve housing affordability in one county. You have to solve it in the Bay Area, because what happens in one county affects another. The same with improving our air, improving the quality of the water in the Bay, dealing with traffic. Those are regional issues. And I frankly really appreciate the opportunity to serve on several regional boards to deal with these issues, like the Air District, where we solve problems, roll up our sleeves, and solve them on a regional basis. And I think that's more of what needs to happen also in the Bay Area.
Well, thank you very much, Supervisor. We are now at the point where you have a 2-minute closing statement.
Great. Well, first, thanks for providing this opportunity. And, I grew up here in West County, and it's a privilege for me to serve our diverse community. My father's passion as a longtime high school civics teacher in Richmond still inspires me today. My work on your behalf is about building strong, healthy, and equitable communities. Working alongside many community leaders, we've delivered real results for people. We've protected our environment by passing the strongest laws in the nation to reduce industrial pollution, making our Bay cleaner, and fighting climate change now, not later. We've improved our community's health by vaccinating nearly 90% of residents. We've enhanced services for seniors. We've improved emergency medical response. And that's really personal to me, since my father died when he did not get emergency medical care fast enough. We've advanced justice and equity by increasing opportunities for all youth, expanding access to healthcare, and establishing a county office of racial equity and social justice. We've protected taxpayers by passing balanced budgets and earning a AAA bond rating. We've improved our safety. We're reopening the Pinole Fire Station. We've expanded fire services. We're creating around-the-clock mental health crisis response teams and fighting domestic violence. I'm proud to be endorsed by all 4 mayors in our district: Congressman DeSaulnier, DA Dinah Becton, the Sierra Club, the Contra Costa Labor Council, and many other elected and community leaders. I'm proud that the East Bay Times endorsed me and said, quote, "No supervisor works harder than John Gioia. No supervisor is a stronger advocate for social and environmental equity and for criminal justice reform. No supervisor better represents the political values of his district and is more available to his constituents." So I'd be honored to have your vote to continue fighting for health and equity for all. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Supervisor. That concludes our discussion with John Gioia, who's running for re-election for Supervisor, District 1 in Contra Costa County. We're having a discussion about the District 1 Supervisor race in Contra Costa County. You just heard from the incumbent, John Gioia. I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Hulen Barnett. Mr. Barnett is an 8th grade math teacher at Dallas Branch Middle School in Antioch. He's a resident of Richmond. Mr. Barnett, welcome, and why do you want to do this?
We just want more things for our district. We want a better quality of life for our district. We want business development. We want better business development. We want education, better education, infrastructure, safety, and affordable housing. I think that I bring to the table the ability to communicate with people and listen to people and try to make sure that the needs of our district are being met for our residents.
You talk about you want business development, you want better development for the county. What's wrong now? Was it not happening?
Well, I think what I'm focused on is encouraging business development to the point where we have a tax base and tax revenue, and to the point where if you go in the city of Richmond and even in El Cerrito, Pinole, throughout throughout these different cities and unincorporated areas, there's very little, I mean, how can I put it? There are very few department stores, limited grocery stores, just access for families to do anything as far as entertainment. I mean, there's minimal for families to do in this environment after COVID, where really, I mean, we're looking at a community with a median income of probably around close to $100,000 and with limited services.
You talk about grocery stores. Now, the county can only do so much when it comes to trying to get a grocery store to open a store in a various area. Have you thought about talking to the companies themselves, like the Safeways, the Rayleighs, the Luckies? I mean, they have to make that decision to locate in the community.
But with our program, what I'm looking at first is just trying to get more development of housing. And when I say that in businesses, so that, let me even give you, for example, and I'm talking more about affordable housing, working with the Contra Costa County realtors to invest and develop affordable housing in District 1. So we really want something to that point where we start generating income so that folks are able to have jobs and have access to more in the community.
You talk about the realtors and the developers to build affordable housing. Is that something that the county can take the lead on?
I think we can, and I think we can incentivize it. And I've seen it happen in other communities like Oakland. How would we incentivize it? We would look for, and even going a step further, the incentive would be to the realtors to be able to benefit by becoming investors instead of having outside investors. And who would better know the community than the county realtors? And so they could end up making money as well as develop affordable housing and make it where people like firefighters, sanitation workers, police are able to buy homes within our community.
Are there places where they could actually build? I mean, my recollection is a lot of these areas are pretty built up. Is there space for affordable housing?
Unincorporated North Richmond is one area where there's quite a bit of land for the county, but also within these various cities. I mean, they're talking about developments, so we could work with the cities to try to do developments. Like Pinole was already talking about doing a development off of the Richmond Parkway at the former Kmart.
Yeah, I recall driving the Richmond Parkway and seeing there is some land out there. I wasn't sure who actually owned it.
But it crosses through various municipalities, and each one brings something to the table. Each one of these municipalities could bring something to the table for affordable housing, as long as it's being incentivized and working with the realtors. I think the realtors would be the best ones to work with because they know our community.
Is that the biggest challenge facing the county, facing District 1?
I think that's just one. I think, again, affordable housing is one, but business, I think, is the biggest. I think the lack of services and the lack of revenue coming in has caused most of these municipalities, especially the city of Richmond, not to take care of just basic needs for the community, like parks, schools, and things where children go to play, and services that children need and families need, and especially after the close of the Hilltop Mall.
When you say parks, I mean, there are parks in Richmond, correct?
Yes, but they need to be they definitely need to be updated and taken care of. And Richmond struggles. Now, if you go to Kensington, you go to El Cerrito, where I think it's Cerrito Vista, where I took my daughter for track. They take care of their parks. They're doing a great job.
Is it because they don't want to, or is it a budget issue?
I think for Richmond, it's a budget issue. I think El Cerrito, Kensington, they have their stuff together. Pinole, San Pablo, they're doing a great job. But I do think we have to work together as a unit because we are District 1. And I look at that as being a family.
And as a supervisor, how would you make these changes?
Well, I would be working with the different officials and just encouraging them, talking with them, looking for where their county resources to incentivize these things. Even looking at Measure X funding to support these services.
For those who don't know what Measure X funding is, could you explain that?
Measure X is a sales tax that funds programs within the county for more of the needier services.
Yeah. One of the issues that people really care about, traffic is one, but of course there's not a lot you can do about traffic, on 80 and 4. But
there is something you can do. But there is something you can do because that is
talk
a
to me.
problem.
Talk to me. I'd like to hear it.
Oh, definitely. That's definitely. And when I say there's something we can do, we're looking at other cities that are doing it already. And one of the programs that I would propose would be a red light traffic program starting within the county that pays for itself, just like the city of Fremont. And it would definitely work on speeding. It would work on decreasing the speed of traffic. It would help with the problems with donuts and criminal activity.
But those are city streets. I'm talking about the state highways, like Interstate 80 and State Highway 4.
Well, I'm more focused on where the residents are. And I'm more focused on the fact that when people come out their houses, they're not having to worry about somebody being reckless within the community. And that's a big problem within our community.
Understood. The other thing people really complain about or talk about a lot is the unhoused population. What are your solutions for the people who can't afford a place to live?
Well, one of the things that we're talking about, again, is working with the Contra Costa County realtors and developing housing and having them build tracts of homes and being investors in it. And it's similar to a tract that was built on the opposite side of Richmond Parkway in Richmond by the East Bay Asian Local Development, where they put together a beautiful development earlier, about 20 years ago. It's probably one of the nicer tracts in Richmond, probably the newest tract in Richmond.
Is that for the unhoused population?
Well, not necessarily for the unhoused, but it would be more affordable housing.
More affordable.
The unhoused population, I don't know a solution to that right now. That's one where we would have to definitely brainstorm. So I don't want to sit here and act like I could give you a fast answer to that one.
Yeah, because that's something that people complain about, not just in District 1, but you have it also in other areas of the county. You have it in Central County, you have it in East County. And I've never heard anybody say this is a solution because there's no easy solution as far as I know to solving that problem.
And we have it as a big problem over here. And I believe you're talking about the homeless, if I'm correct.
Yeah, the unhoused population, that's another term for the homeless.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're talking about the same, we're talking about the same topic. Something needs to be done. I mean, we would have to brainstorm it and figure out, because once I'm elected, that would definitely be something on my plate that I would have to prioritize. And the reason why I say it, because as I've been talking with people over the last couple of months, the one thing that they've really been fearful of are homeless folks with mental health issues. And I talked with one young man who has a pregnant wife and 2 youngsters, and he is fearful of leaving his house in Pinole for the very reason that there are homeless folks with mental health issues. So again, I don't know a solution. I don't want to sit here and tell you. I think it's very complicated. And I think we would definitely need support from the state and the federal government. Again, I don't think that would be solved on a local level. I mean, I think there are groups that are coming in, like the churches are trying to step up here in Richmond in support. But when you get to somebody with mental health issues, I don't know if the churches can provide that service.
Yeah, I know that there are a lot of problems. There are no easy solutions to any of them. As a supervisor, you'd be in a position to do that. We're at the end of our actual interview, but you have 2 minutes now to basically give us a closing statement and tell people why to vote for you.
Well, I mean, in summarizing, again, my agenda, what I plan to do is business development and encouragement. I will encourage the development of businesses in District 1 to increase the tax base and tax revenue. Number two, education. The revenue generated from the tax base will pay for new schools in District 1. As well, students can earn internships to work with these businesses. Number three is infrastructure. The revenue generated from the increased tax revenue will allow for the repairs of parks, kids' play areas, and roads. These funds will help towards funding a new county hospital in District 1. Number four is safety. I will implement a red light traffic program to decrease the speed of traffic donuts and criminal activity. This program will pay for itself. Number five is affordable housing. I will work with the Contra Costa County Realtors to invest and develop affordable housing in District 1. Now, that being said, one of the things that I've experienced and have learned just in my recent years, probably more than anything, are expectations for our family and our children. And one of the best experience I had was 2 months ago when my daughter's track coach told me about a meet that they had put on with the high school students. Now, most of the track runners for my daughter's group are 13 and under. And there was a group of the older kids, which are mostly 5th, 6th, 7th grade, and they challenged high school students and at De Anza High School here in Richmond. And in that event, in three of the events, the longer distance races, the 800 and the 400, these younger children beat high school students. They took first, second, and third. And so my thoughts are expectations are everything.
Okay, that's a wonderful story. I love to hear that. Those kids are going to be great coming up. You've heard from Hulen Barnett. Before this, you heard from John Joy, the incumbent supervisor, District 1 in Contra Costa County. To view this broadcast online, you can go to www.cocovote.us. I'm Bob Butler from KCBS Radio in San Francisco. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to vote on June 7th. Mr. Barnett, thank you very much. Mr. Gioia, thank you very much. Have a nice day.